I guess something that Reform UK are desperate to shake off is the idea that they're a party of the rich for the rich. Now, they're not a party of the working class. They're not a grassroots organisation, even though they present themselves as so. They're a party run by millionaires who vote against measures to protect the working class. Look at their voting record if you don't believe me. Now, they know that they can't win elections based on just appealing to the richest people in society, so they have to tap into issues like immigration and amplify it as much as possible to convince the working class that they're on their side. And if that doesn't work, well, then just lie.
If you look at social demographics, if you look at C2DE voters, those of lower socioeconomic standing, they are switching in their droves to us, which is not necessarily what you would have expected.
Well, the alarm clock class, the people that have to get up in the morning, set the alarms, get up in the morning, go to work. Here's one stat about British politics that very few people know, and you've noticed it clearly. 40% of all working class voters are currently planning to vote Reform, which is twice as many who are planning to vote for Labour, which is more than twice as many who are planning to vote for the Tories. This is the most popular political party among British workers.
It's extraordinary.
It's extraordinary because what does he mean by working class? He said, here's a stat. 40% of working class people are going to vote for Reform. There are people who earn £70,000, £80,000 a year who describe themselves as working class. There are people who've gone to university who describe themselves as working class. So if people define themselves as working class, well, it's very easy to find stats that will back the idea that 40% of them are going to vote for Reform. Now, I'm not saying that Reform are not picking up voters. They certainly are. But if you look at the polling that I showed you recently, while Reform are doing well with certain demographics, they're not doing as well as the Green Party in many cases. And this is why it's so important for the Green Party to get their faces on TV, to get their message out, to convince people that they are the party of the working class, not Nigel Farage and his millionaire friends. Because if you look at the bills that were going through Parliament, if you look at the votes in Parliament, Reform UK are voting against measures to help working class people. Now, what they're doing, of course, is tapping into issues like immigration, tax, wokeness, the culture wars, stuff like that, because they can't run on policies. They can't run on policies that would benefit working class people because they're voting against them, because they represent the rich. What they're doing is they're trying to convince working class people that their enemy is people in small boats, that their enemy is the immigrant coming, with a visa, that immigration is the problem. This is why they keep amplifying immigration. And unfortunately, they are succeeding to a certain extent. Immigration has now reached the top or the second place in polling when it comes to the most important issues on people's minds. We were down this road before, and this is why it's so concerning. 5 years before the Brexit referendum in 2010, polling was done and the European Union was way down the list. Immigration was pretty far down the list as well. But by the time the Brexit vote was about to happen, immigration and the EU were top priorities for people, even though they didn't fully understand them. And we're seeing it again. Reform UK and their friends in the media are amplifying immigration at the expense of the cost of living crisis, at the expense of the NHS, and also at a time where the NHS, social care, which should be prioritised, these sectors are crying out for labour, crying out for workers. When you need workers, parties like Reform want to make it more difficult for the economy to grow. They want to make it more difficult for public sectors like the NHS and other sectors like social care, hospitality, agriculture and others to access the workers they need. They need to be called out on this. And unfortunately, the media isn't doing it. So it falls on people like myself and others to call this out. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.